Hello and welcome to English for Life podcast with me, Joy. I'm so glad you could join us today. And as always, I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Will.
Hey Joy! Hey everyone, it's great to be back. So, what's on the agenda for today's episode?
Well, Will, today we are tackling something that I think it makes a lot of people nervous. We're talking about job interviews. Specifically, how to master the art of storytelling in an interview using a really cool technique called the STAR method.
Ooh, the STAR method. I like the sound of that. And you're right, job interviews are stressful. Especially those questions. You know, the ones that start with, tell me about a time when. They can really catch you off guard.
Exactly. So, let me ask you, Will, are you naturally good at telling stories, especially under pressure like that? For me, I sometimes tend to ramble, or worse, I forget to mention the most important part of the story.
That's such a common problem. It's one thing to think of a good example, but it's another thing entirely to relay it as a clear, well-structured story. You know, an anecdote with a clear takeaway for the interviewer. It's tough. We've definitely all been there.
But the good news is, there's a solution. And that's where the STAR method comes in. It's a technique that gives you a super straightforward format to tell a story. It's an acronym S-T, ASOR. It stands for Situation, Task, Action, and Result.
Right? It's basically a simple framework. So the S for situation is where you set the scene. You give the necessary context and details of your example, just enough for the interviewer to understand what was going on.
Then comes T for task. This is where you describe what your specific responsibility was in that situation. What were you supposed to accomplish?
Yep. And after task comes A for action. This is the part where you explain exactly what steps you took to address the situation or to complete the task. The what you did part of the story.
And finally, R for result. Here, you share the outcomes. What happened because of your actions? What did you achieve? This part is so important. By using these 4 parts, your story becomes focused and really compelling.
Exactly. It helps the interviewer follow along easily. Okay, so now that we know what STAR stands for, how do we, actually use it in an interview? Let's break it down step by step. Let's start with S, situation.
Okay, so for situation, your goal is to paint a clear picture. But, and this is key, you have to keep it concise. Just focus on what's relevant. One career coach, Emma Flowers, says to aim for just 1 or 2 sentences for each letter of the acronym. So, for example, if an interviewer says, tell me about a time you achieved a goal that you thought was out of reach, your situation might be something like, in my previous digital marketing role, my company decided to focus on email marketing and wanted to increase their list of subscribers pretty aggressively. See? Short, sweet, and to the point.
That's a perfect example. It gives just enough context. Okay, so next is T for task. This is where you explain your role in the story. It's about your specific responsibilities and the objective that was set for you. So, continuing with that same example, your task could be, as the email marketing manager, my target was to increase the size of our email list by at least 50% in just 1 quarter.
Right. It clearly defines the goal. Now for A, action. This is your moment to shine. You need to explain what you actually did. And be specific. Don't just say, I worked hard. Talk about the actual steps you took. For our marketing example, the action could sound like this. I started by going back through our old blog posts and adding content upgrades that incentivized email subscriptions. Next, I worked with the marketing team to plan and host a webinar that required an email address to register, which funneled more interested users into our list.
I love how specific that is. You can really picture the person doing those things. Okay, and that brings us to the final, and maybe most crucial part. R for result. So many people forget this step. But interviewers don't just care about what you did, they care about why it mattered. So, you have to share the positive outcome. And try to use numbers whenever you can. Numbers are super impactful.
Totally agree. So, to finish our example, the result would be, as a result of those additions to our email strategy, I was able to increase our subscriber list from 25,000 to 40,000 in 3 months, which exceeded our goal by 20%. And webinars have now become a regular event to boost and maintain our email list.
Wow, that's a fantastic answer. It's concise, it's structured, it's full of detail, and it ends with a really strong, quantifiable result. That's the power of the STAR method right there.
It really is. So, to get ready to use this method, it's a good idea to prepare a little before your interview. First, really look over the job description, see what skills they're looking for, and think of stories that highlight those skills. For example, if it's a customer service role, it's great to have a story ready about a time you handled a difficult customer.
That's a great point. I think walking through another example would be really helpful for our listeners. Could you show us how the STAR method would work for that customer service scenario? That's a great tip. You should also try to prepare a few strong, versatile stories that you can adapt to different questions. You know, stories about teamwork or overcoming a challenge. Those come up a lot. And then, and this is important, practice telling them out loud. Talk them through in the mirror or with a friend so it feels natural when you're in the actual interview.
Yes, practice is so important. And one last thing, don't rush yourself. If you get a question and you're struggling to think of an example, it is perfectly okay to say, "Can I take a moment to think about that?" It shows you're thoughtful and want to give a good answer. It's actually impressive.
Absolutely. So, the STAR method might seem like a lot at first, but with a little bit of preparation, it can turn those dreaded behavioral questions into an opportunity to really showcase your qualifications and impress that hiring manager.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Will. Well, that's all the time we have for today. We hope this breakdown of the STAR method helps you feel more confident in your next job interview.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Go out there and tell your stories.
And thank you for listening to English for Life podcast with Joy. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.